But where sin abounds, grace abounds. That means that yes, it is worse than it's ever been, and Jesus said, I will give you more grace than you've ever needed to live holy lives in this generation. But Christ has to be the middle of our focus. We're transformed by beholding. You may have heard me share the story before about this old guy, Wilbur, he was a retired bachelor, never married, lived by himself, and he'd go once a day, he'd walk downtown, he'd meet with his friends at the coffee shop, they'd have lunch together, and that was sort of his ritual. But one day he noticed as he walked by the antique store on his way to the coffee shop, they had put this beautiful vase in the window. And it's hard to explain, but it was just sort of, it was like blown glass with all the colors of a rainbow, kind of like a hummingbird's throat, all these different colors. And it kind of shimmered and shined, and it was very carefully designed and had exquisite patterns and the glass shapes they'd put on it. And he saw that, and it just struck him as the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. He just stopped, he stared at it. Then he went on to the coffee shop and he ate with his friends. On the way home, he stopped again, he looked. This went on for several weeks. Finally, the proprietor of the antique store came out, knew him, said, Wilbur, you stop every day and you stare at the vase. Says, you live by yourself. You don't have a lot of expenses. Why don't you buy it? You can look at it every day. He said, look, I'll make you a deal. I said, I'd never consider it. I said, all right, I'll buy it. So he bought the vase and he brings it home. Now, he'd been living by himself for a long time. He hadn't changed or redecorated his house in 50 years. He's a bachelor. There's no need to, right? And everything was dusty and frumpy and the faded curtains, and he's got little papers laying everywhere. And so he cleared a spot on the mantle above the fireplace, and he put the vase there, and he sat back in his chair, and he looked at it, and he thought, wow, you know, it is beautiful, but I had no idea how bad the paint was on that wall behind it and all the dust. And so he said, he took it down, and he decided to paint the wall and clean the shelf off, and then he put it there and he sat down. So that thing is spectacular. When the light comes through the window, and he looked at the window and he thought, why, those windows, I didn't realize I haven't cleaned those things in 20 years. And the curtains were faded. He said, I guess I better do something about that. I wonder what people think. So he got out and he cleaned his windows, and he thought, he got some lady in church to help me, got some new curtains, hung up some new curtains, painted, and sat down in his chair. When he walked in the room, though, he noticed his chair, the springs were sticking out of the chair. He hadn't done anything about it. He just got used to the springs poking him, and he thought, I probably need a new chair. Bought a new chair, new carpet. When the inside got so clean, cleaned up the kitchen, he thought, compared to that, the weeds were growing where flowers once grew in the backyard, and he fixed the broken over fence in the front, and you get the point. Wilbur's whole house was completely renovated because he had introduced something that looked pure, so that everything else was being condemned by the purity of the vase. And when we invite Christ into our lives, it creates a total makeover. All of a sudden, he stands there, and in his purity, by contrast, it makes every spot of defilement painfully distinct. And you say, oh, that needs to go. That needs to be cleaned. That needs to be painted. And little by little, the whole life is transformed. And it comes by keeping the focus on Christ in our life.